Welcome back to another video about how to heal adoption and narcissistic abuse. If you are new to my channel, my name is Theodora. I work as a spiritual and psychological counselor, and I am an adoptee myself. Welcome to this video where we're going to talk about how to not give a fuck. What does it mean when I say how to not give a fuck as an adoptee? Why is it important to not give a fuck? What does it mean to not give a fuck? We could also reframe it and say how to not let ourselves be stopped by our concerns about what other people think, our concerns about, are we taking up too much space in the room? Like, are we shining our light too brightly? Or are we hurting other people because we are setting boundaries, necessary boundaries, right? Are we hurting the other person? And is that holding us back from even setting boundaries? And how can we show up as our most authentic self? But if it was that easy to just show up, shine your light, be authentic, set necessary, normal, healthy boundaries, why are we not doing it more? There's so many things that are holding us back from reaching that state where we are not giving a fuck. And this is not to be mistaken with that we are careless, because we can never be careless. We will always care because we are very empathic people. Because we are empathic people, we will always care. But one of the more weaker sides of being empathic is that we can tend to care too much, so that we end up holding ourselves down, diminishing ourselves, and not showing up the way we want to show up, and not allowing other people to see the full authentic expression that we want to show them. There's so many things that are holding us back. And as I've spoken about in so many of my other videos, we need to go back to the past, all right? We need to look at when was the first time someone was punishing you or shaming you for showing up authentically, for expressing your needs. Maybe it already started when you were an infant and where your needs were not met, because it's so normal and natural that when we're infants, we are most authentic, actually, because we are 100% expressing our needs. We're expressing when we're sad, we're expressing when we are hungry, when we need comfort, when we need to sleep, and when we need to be changed. We are expressing that without hesitation, without considering, oh, is this a good time for mommy to give me food now, or should I wait screaming until after she is done cleaning up the kitchen? We will never think that, because that part of our brain has not even been developed yet, that reflective part. It doesn't develop until we're around 7. So we are instantly expressing our needs. So something happened from 0 to 7 years old in your life that made you suppress your authentic needs, and that made you suppress your authentic expression. And no matter what it is, it's the key to dissolve it. It's the key to change it. And when you find out what that is, when was it? What was being told? What was being said to you? What impression were left inside of you that led to that conviction that you cannot show up as your authentic self. You cannot express yourself authentically, your needs, your boundaries, what you like, what you dislike, when you found out, when was this? Between 0 and 7 years old. You can change it. And then you can replace that belief, that learning, unhealthy learning, change it, replace it into believing you are worthy, believing that you are allowed to show up authentically, and eventually not give a fuck. And not give a fuck about what are other people going to think. You're gonna reach a point, at some point in your life, when you continue your personal development, you're gonna reach a point in your life where you won't resonate anymore with people who used to be like you were, who used to be like you used to be. So at some point you will realize, okay, now you have changed it, because it might not be like, whoa, and then you see like, oh, I changed it now. Sometimes we realize it when we are meeting other people who are mirroring back how we used to be. And then we feel repelled, or we feel like, or in that moment we realize, I don't do that anymore, or I don't do it to the same degree anymore. That's actually not me. I have actually changed it. So it can be really good to notice that in other people, notice their behavior and compare it with yourself, not judging them, but just compare it with where are you in your process compared to where they are, and how they're behaving and how they're showing up for themselves and how you're perceiving that internally. What we need to understand about showing up authentically and not giving a fuck is that it's not our natural state. It's not natural to be so afraid of what other people think. It's not natural to continue to suppress your core emotions, your core needs, your authentic self. We are not supposed to do that. But when we were adopted, something fundamental changed within us. One of the things that I see in my work with adopted people is that they will have certain areas that's going to be where they're going to be in this constant search for fulfillment. And some of the areas are like the need for belonging, because that is something that was taken away from us when we were adopted. We were taken away from those we belonged to. And maybe we grew up in an adoptive family where we never felt included. It doesn't have to be a dysfunctional adoptive family. It could be a completely non-dysfunctional adoptive family. But still, I have clients reporting back to me and say they still never felt included. They still never felt accepted. Maybe it was from the adoptive parents' children that made the adopted person that they never felt included. It could be something as little as that. And when I say little, I don't mean that it's insignificant to then not feel accepted or included, but it's more to say that it doesn't always have to be these huge issues that's going on into these families, because again, what we also need to remember about being adopted is that our sensitivity is up here, whereas for non-adopted people is somewhere here. So our sensitivity is like so increased. And that means that we are almost like these small alien children with like these huge antennas, and we're just like screening all our surroundings all the time. And that's extremely exhausting, but we will make another video about that and how we can maybe not screen so much. But this means that when we are placed in a new family, which is, again, just so traumatic, it's so traumatizing to be placed in a new family and to be separated from our biological mother. It's so traumatizing. So when all that has happened, when we have been exposed to all that, and we have to adapt into this new family, we will see everything that's going on. We will sense everything that's going on. All our senses will be increased because we are in a flight, fight, flight mode. We are hyper alert, literally. And that will just continue. For some people, it continue for long up in adulthood. For others, it might decreases a little bit or something like that, but it can extend way long into adulthood. This need for belonging is inflicting with our need to also be able to not give a fuck, right? Is inflicting that. We cannot let go of the need for belonging. And maybe we have already suppressed that need in our entire childhood because no one was addressing it, no one was validating that we had that need. So when we reach adulthood, we might literally allow ourselves to tune in with that need and say, okay, I'm going to find out how I can fulfill that. I'm going to search my biological family, or I'm going to learn Chinese if you were adopted from China into another country, for example, or like you're going to learn to cook the local food from the country you came from if you are internationally adopted. Or you say that you are going to find other groups or communities with other adopted people because they might be the only one who can give you that sense of belonging, because at least you're equal in these groups, right? So it's inflicting with that need for belonging and that freedom that comes with not caring so much and actually be focusing a little bit more on what do you need in order to be authentic, show up authentically, not fear setting boundaries, and to still know that you are good enough. You are still a good person when you are shining your light, all that it needs to be shined, that you are not taking up too much space, you are not being egocentric or whatever you were told to believe when you grew up, or whatever sense you got from the family you grew up in, that you had to be invisible. You don't have to be invisible anymore. You don't need to hide yourself because you are here for a reason, and the world wouldn't be the same without you. What else would the point of you being here if it wasn't because you are needed? Stop being invisible and begin allowing yourself to exist in the way that you want to exist. It's okay if you don't feel like you are the most outgoing person in general and that you don't want to splash out, oh, here I come, look at my beautiful light, I'm shining. We are all different. But my point is, don't hold yourself back because you're concerned about some external factors. That should not be why you are not showing up the way you're showing up. So what I would like you to do after watching this video is a little journal exercise. I want you to write down what is holding you back and really allow yourself to sit with that. Like sit with it for like 10-15 minutes without being disturbed. Just sit with that. Ask yourself, keep asking yourself. Search for the answer. Because when we ask ourselves questions, our subconscious mind will begin looking for the answers. So just keep asking yourself, what is actually holding you back? And you might find that it's some limiting beliefs, it's some limiting convictions, it's because of some past experiences you had. And then write that down. Write down, it's because I believe that I'm not allowed to shine my life, that I'm not allowed then write that down. Write down exactly the answers you're being given. Write down that I am afraid to shine my light because I was never allowed to take up that much space in the adoptive family I grew up in. Or I was always punished by my dysfunctional adoptive parents because they wanted to be in the center, because they were so self-absorbed. Whatever it is, just write it down. When you have done that, I want you to write next to them what phrases could you replace them with. Let's say that you find out that you are afraid to shine your light because you are afraid to be judged by other people. You find a positive opposite to that will liberate you, and that could be, I feel safe shining my light, and I know that the right people are going to appreciate it. Honestly, some people won't like it, but that is life. Some people won't like it. Some people will get so pissed. They will get so frustrated when you suddenly begin to shine your light so brightly. Some people will get jealous. They'll be annoyed. They'll feel repelled. They will get angry. They will feel rejected because you suddenly tune in with yourself. And that's when you're going to see that you are moving away from how you used to be and then transforming into this new person. And that's when you're going to notice in the other people's reactions and their behaviors, you're going to notice, okay, I'm not that person anymore because I'm beginning to shine my light. I'm showing up authentically. And you just need to accept that they have their own process and you're not a part of that. And sometimes it can really help to put a hand on your chest and say, this is where I physically end and mentally end and emotionally end. And this is where other people physically begin, mentally begin, and emotionally begin. And then notice that gap between you and the other people. Like, you detach from them. There is no invisible strings between you and them. But again, this is something that might stem from the childhood, right? Between 0 and 7 years old. No matter what, change is possible. Just remember that. Change is so possible. You are not what happened to you. You are holding on to what happened to you. But you are not that. You are so much more than that. But right now, you're simply holding too tightly on to what happened to you. But that doesn't mean that this is you. This is a part of what you have been exposed to in your life. And this is a part of what your brain were not able to process as a child because you were not supported when you were exposed to upsetting traumatic events. So that's why you're holding on to it. But that doesn't mean that this is you. This is not you. This is shitty people. This is what shitty people did. This is what a shitty adoption system did. This is them. This is the representation of them. But it's not you. It's not you. I feel like there was so much more I wanted to say about this because it's quite complex, more complex than I thought about when I was preparing it. I wanted to also talk about rejection, the fear of rejection, because it's so really linked to our fear of abandonment that stems from being adopted. But I honestly think that I'm going to wait talking about that for another video because we will need to really unfold that issue, right? So the only thing I want to say about that is if you are at a state in your life where you feel like that you honestly don't believe that it's possible to not fear rejection, that it's possible to live a life where you won't have to be controlled by your fear of rejection or your fear of abandonment, I want to tell you that that life is possible. It is possible to reach a state where you won't fear that, where you only can feel like, yes, this is something that happened to me, and it was a very painful experience, and I hold on to that for way too many years. But now I have developed such a strong sense of self that I know that no matter what happens to me, it's not going to take away the relationship that I have built within myself, the foundation I have built within myself. That's not going to take anything away from that. And that means that you are also being confirmed that you will be okay. You will be okay when people leave your life, because people are going to leave your life. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. This is life. This is a part of life. We meet people. We might spend some years with them. We might only spend a few months with them. And then we separate again. And then we have to go each our ways and do different projects, different processes, or have different experiences that we couldn't have together. And that's a part of life. It's very, very normal. And that's why it's so important that we get used to the acceptance of this being a part of life, because we will experience it over and over again. And we need to be able to hold ourselves, to give ourselves the right self-care, the right love and nurture when these things happen, when people are living our life or when we are living people's lives. We need to be able to build a toolbox where we can reach out for tools to help us when these things happen, because they will happen, and we are going to make it to the other side of these experiences. And it's okay if it's not easy for you. It's very okay, considering what you've been through. It's not necessarily easy, and that's why we need to build some resilience in these areas of ourselves as adopted people, these areas where we hold so much fear that is literally holding us back from living the life we want to live. We need to look at these areas. They're very fragile, right? It's these very small, fragile parts of us. That's why we need to boost them with resilience and self-love, self-care, self-worth, and all that stuff. But it takes time, and we need to take one day at a time, take one exercise at a time. So I hope that this video was helpful for you, whatever you're in your process, and I hope that the exercise I'm inviting you to do, that is going to be helpful. And I would love to hear your comments about if this exercise was helpful, and also if the video was helpful, or if it wasn't helpful. I would love to hear that as well. I believe in you 100%. I wouldn't do these videos. I wouldn't talk about all this. I wouldn't continue to encourage you guys if it wasn't because I have seen it happen. I have seen it come true in my own life. That's why I want to continue encouraging you through these videos. That's why I still root for you, and that I'm not going to stop rooting for you, because I know it is possible. Because if I experienced it in my life, if I made it to this state, then why would it not be possible for other people? That would not make sense, considering my past, considering what happened to me. But it is. So hold on to that. Don't give up. Don't you dare give up. I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.